Schiffman, he updated the copyright. He's discussing the literary evidence of Messianism in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Here's what he says, page 326 and 327, with his ideas on the Messianic idea. What is the Messianic idea? It was once thought that a history of the Messianic idea at Qumran could be constructed that would go hand in hand with the archaeological reconstruction of the site's history of occupation. Well, this has proved impossible to stratify the sect's Messianic beliefs historically, as scholars have discovered from surveying the text. What has become clear to us is this, and Schiffman's point here is really important, I believe. In every period, a variety of ideas coexist together within the group. It's far more helpful to analyze the scrolls according to the two dominant trends in Jewish Messianism, the restorative and the utopian. At Qumran, those texts that espouse the Davidic Messiah, these tend toward the restorative idea. They emphasize the prophecies of peace and prosperity, and not expecting the cataclysmic destruction of all evil. And on the other hand, we have the more catastrophic, the utopian, or even the apocalyptic tendencies, and these usually exclude a Davidic Messiah. They seek instead to invest authority in a dominant, priestly religious leader and a temporal prince who will be subservient to the priestly figure. This is in the Dead Sea Scrolls here. They give no evidence of Davidic allegiance. What happens is they transpose the prominent role of the priesthood in sectarian life. They put that onto the end of days. See, these utopians, they sometimes sought to limit the leadership to one messianic figure. And we occasionally encounter both the restorative and the utopian trends side by side in the same text, interestingly. And these demonstrate that these two trends were beginning the long process of merging together into what later would become the messianic ideal of rabbinic Judaism. But the scrolls, see, takes us behind the scenes, so to speak, behind what we know now as rabbinic Judaism. And Schiffman continues, we will never be able to construct an exact historical sequence for the messianic ideas and texts found at Qumran. Unfortunately, that's just beyond us at this point. We don't have enough information yet. We don't have enough complete texts, unfortunately. The best we can do for now is to understand them within the framework just proposed. What we have in the Dead Sea Scrolls is a matrix of history on one axis, and the restorative utopian dichotomy on the other. And it's only through this dynamic perspective that we can make sense of the rich and variegated eschatological ideas, that is, the ideas about the last days, and approaches represented in the Dead Sea Scrolls. The thing we cannot do, according to Schiffman, is approach these materials as a monolithic corpus. And I think there's wisdom in that. At this particular point, I believe, the Dead Sea Scrolls have broadened our abilities, I'll put it this way, our abilities to simply begin understanding the vast mix, the incredibly astonishing variety of different types of thinking, of the way they approached Scripture, as opposed to how they approached the last days, as to the way they approached their enemies, whom they called the Kittim, and so on and so forth. I think it's a very interesting thing here. That being said, let me turn to Dr. Flint and Dr. Vanderkam's very excellent book, The Meaning of the Dead Sea Scrolls. This was just recently published by Harper San Francisco in 2002. The latest, some of the very newest information. On page 332, following, they're discussing the Dead Sea Scroll fragment, the 4Q521. This because this fragment was found in the fourth cave. That's what 4Q means. And then this is the 521st fragment that they've discussed. Now, this has important ramifications for better understanding Jesus and his ministry, because it's officially known as the Messianic Apocalypse. It's on the redemption and the resurrection. It was copied in the 1st century BCE, they contend. What this does is it reveals much about Jewish Messianism at the time of Jesus, and it contains fascinating similarities to the New Testament description of Jesus Christ. Very interesting. This is basically essentially background, in other words. And Dr. Flint, the way he put it in his discussion is after he discussed the ideas of the Messianic apocalypse, he said, "Folks, what I'm giving you, my friends, is dynamite." And I think he's right. There are some very, very strong implications, strong ramifications for this type of material in the Dead Sea Scrolls now, and this is what keeps it so exciting. They note that the scroll presents a list of characteristics that at least some Jews expected would take place with the coming of the Messiah. And these are some of their characteristics. They say, here's their translation. It's up on the top of page 333. "For the heavens and the earth shall listen to his Messiah, and all which is in them shall not turn away from the commandments of the holy ones. Strengthen yourselves, O you who seek the Lord, in his service. Will you not find the Lord in this, all those who hope in their heart? For the Lord seeks the pious, and he calls the righteous by name. Over the humble his spirit hovers, and he renews the faithful in his strength. For he will honor the pious upon the throne of his eternal kingdom. Release the captives, open the eyes of the blind, lifting up those who are oppressed. And forever I shall hold fast to the hopeful and pious." Then there's a blank, "shall not be delayed." There's another blank, and then it says, "And the Lord shall do glorious things which have not been done, just as he said. For he shall heal the critically wounded. He shall raise the dead. He shall bring good news to the poor. He shall lead the holy ones and the hungry. He shall enrich," and then the text breaks off. Well, now this is interesting because this quoted passage clearly refers to the Messiah, whose coming is connected with the rule of heaven and earth. Among the wondrous signs that attend the Messiah's coming are the release of the captives, the opening of the eyes of the blind, the raising up of those who are oppressed, the raising of the dead, and the bringing of good news to the poor. Interestingly, several of these features are also found in Isaiah chapter 61, 1 through 2, and chapter 58, 6. And it's interestingly reiterated in Luke chapter 4, verses 16 through 21. "When he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, he," meaning Jesus, "he went to the synagogue on the Sabbath day, as was his custom. He stood up to read, and the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was given to him. He unrolled the scroll and found the place where it was written, 'The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor.' Then he," that is Jesus, "rolled up the scroll and gave it back to the attendant and sat down. And the eyes of all the synagogue were fixed on him. Then he began